Let's talk about some teams that flashed some brilliance this year, Garrett. These are teams that weren't necessarily playoff contenders, but definitely showed us something throughout the year that gave us something to be excited about. I'm going to start with East Carolina. They won 5 of their last 6 after a really rough start, including beating NC State in a bowl game. And oh, by the way, they open next season with NC State. Also in this tier, we've got the boys, the Bearcats, right down the street from me. They won 10 games in year 2 in the FBS. UConn was a hair away from 10 wins. Buffalo won 5 straight to close the season. Bowling Green, the Fighting Harold Fannons, scared the crap out of Penn State and A&M. Their record doesn't show how good they were because they really challenged themselves out of conference, but man, that was a good football team that really flashed at times. Wazoo, weird year, being in the Pac-2 and having a schedule alliance with the Mountain West and all that stuff, but we were legitimately trying to paint a path to the playoff in mid-November when they were like 8-1. And then a couple more, James Madison and Georgia Southern out of the Sun Belt. James Madison, if you'll recall, had a 70-50 win over UNC in late September. And Georgia Southern...
Yeah, but what'd they do in football? That's the basketball score, right?
Incorrect. North Carolina fans would not be surprised if they lost to James Madison by 20 this year because they're not very good on the hardwood.
Very good at basketball this year, yeah.
But no, that was the football score. That was the patented Mac Brown defense in Chapel Hill that Bill Belichick will have to find a way to fix. And then Georgia Southern in that same division, they beat the good teams in the division. They were a thorn in the side of the top half of the Sun Belt East and really struggled against the bottom half. Their losses to Old Dominion and Troy, who I think were like a combined 7-10 or something like that, 7-11 in conference play, really sunk the ship for Georgia Southern. So, Garrett, pick a card, any card. Where do you want to go from that wide-ranging tier there?
Man, from this tier, I think I just want to give another round of applause to Harold Fannin Jr. and Bowling Green. Yeah, they challenged themselves. Sometimes I think, like, what if they had scheduled like a couple of teams that were a little easier than Penn State and A&M, right? Like, what if they had scheduled like maybe a UCLA and they go out there and beat UCLA, and then maybe schedule like a Big 12 mid tier to like a Baylor or someone like that, right? And they go and beat Baylor. You're looking at 2 more wins, which means you're probably playing a better bowl game. And probably going to go win that bowl game against that mid-tier team that you end up getting. So could have been a lot better year if they hadn't tried so dang hard playing in 2 of the toughest venues in all of college football. But you got to give them their flowers. You got to give them a round of applause. Harold Fannin Jr., maybe one of the best tight ends to play the game. I'm really excited to see what he does with his pro career. Going to be one of my the sneaker rookie draft picks in fantasy football next year, depending on his landing spot. 117 catches, over 1,500 yards, 10 touchdowns. Take a bow. Just fantastic job. The career numbers, great. Just an awesome season, an awesome year for them. I think that they deserve their flowers. It was a really, really good season for them. And it's just exciting times there. This is one of the teams I don't know what to expect next. I don't know really what is going to come next for Bowling Green. But I do know that this season was really cool.
I'll talk about Sam Houston and give them some flowers as well. 10 wins, year 2 in the FBS. That's just absolutely incredible. They beat Georgia Southern, the aforementioned Georgia Southern Eagles in the New Orleans Bowl in a really fun game. This was not a team that threw the ball consistently well. Like if you go down their game logs, a lot of times their quarterbacks were not throwing for a ton of yardage. And Hunter Watson was a gamer, and they didn't ask him to throw that much. They asked him to run way more often than throw, it seemed at times, but wasn't an elite passing offense, but it was a dang good rushing offense and a really solid defense that led them to some just grinded out wins down the stretch. They had a stretch in the middle of the year. They lost to Western Kentucky at home on a Wednesday night, 31-14. That's when Hunter Watson got hurt in that game, I believe, and was replaced by the backup. Then they go in and win with that backup with Jace Bauer, 10-7 at FIU, just grind it out, find a way. They come back home against La Tech. Hunter Watson is back in the lineup. It's a 9-3 win. And then they go to Kennesaw, Georgia and win 23-17 in overtime. And this is a team that we kind of pointed in the preseason of like, hey, they lost a lot of close games in their first year at the FBS level. I'm pulling up their schedule right now. They started 0-8, Garrett, and all but one of their games were decided by 14 points of fewer in that 0-8 start. And then they finished 3-9. Their last loss was 28-23 as well. So 8 of their 9 losses in their first year were by 14 points or fewer. Mm-hmm. And they flipped the script on that in 2024. They found a way to win. Obviously, Casey Keeler is off to Temple to become the head coach up there. But I'm growing in confidence on the Phil Longo hire. I'm not going to lie. I wasn't crazy about it when they first hired him. I know he has the history there. He was the offensive coordinator. But I'm picking up excitement on the Phil Longo hire, and I think it could be
fan of the show. Phil Longo follows the Twitter, so
absolutely, yeah. Shout out, Phil. Hopefully you catch this clip later this week, but I'm really excited. Maybe I can, maybe if you want to do an interview, I'm like 30 minutes down the road.
I'd happily have him on. That'd be a lot of fun.
Absolutely, I'll come do it in person. I'm 30 minutes from Huntsville. Yeah. Not a bad drive for me at all down Highway 30. But yeah, so Sam Houston, fantastic season. UConn. Shout out to our boy Bobby that holds it down on the UConn beat on Twitter.
Absolutely.
He was rewarded this year. He was not rewarded for his confidence in 2023, but they bounced back in a big way, got a bowl win in the Fenway Bowl as well. And I guess like the only other weird one that really sticks out to me is Wazoo, because this is a school that they're losing a ton in the portal this year. I think a lot of their players decided to give it one shot and then realize that it's a little different playing in Pac-12 stadiums versus Mountain West and whatever the new Pac-12 looks like stadiums. And obviously Mateer is leaving for Oklahoma. They lost several other key contributors as well. It's a sketchy future for Wazoo and Oregon State. And then hopefully I'm rooting for them to dominate that new Pac-12, whatever that looks like starting next year. But man, that future just seems on thin ice.
Yeah, it's not a team, either one of them, not a team I'd want to put any real stock in right now. Not because I don't believe in them, not because I think that they're bad programs, but just because I have no idea what the future holds for either of these teams. And as the conference shifts and as teams realign again and they try to bring the Pac-12 back and weaken at Bernie's the conference or whatever they're going to try to do, I just don't trust very much right now. And since I don't know what the future holds for them, because the sport itself is pretty volatile, don't give me the 2-person conference and tell me that either of these teams are a stable thing that you can bet on going forward. So though I will hope and though I will, excitedly, throw my hands up and say, hey, what do you know? When either of these teams decide to go off and make a little run or win 10 games or whatever it is, I'll happily cheer them on. While that is true, I'm not going to bet on either of them right now just because I have no idea what the future holds.
Yeah, Jake Dickert left for Wake Forest, of course, too. They did hire a winner, so I'll give them that. Jimmy Rogers is coming over from South Dakota State, obviously has won a national championship with the Jackrabbits, so they hired a winner, and that's the best that you can do in a situation like that. And they'll try to figure out life continually in a really weird situation, a G5, G6, or kind of on the border of a power conference. I do think the winner of the Pac-12 is going to be in a prime position most years for the college football playoff, just from a brand perspective and just the respect that a lot of those teams do have. But It's going to be an uphill battle, as we all knew when they got left behind by those teams moving to the Big Ten and the Big 12.
Gracious him! How about